places like China and North Korea. We were the Christian persecution capital of the world, and that was thanks to AHS. We have a bloated organizational structure at AHS, managers managing managers. In fact, I once was able to obtain a book. It was about 300 pages long, and it is a book of just flowcharts of the AHS organizational structure and who manages whom. 300 pages of AHS managers managing managers. That's the entire book. It's just this obscene management structure. And no one has made an attempt to reorganize this structure since 2013, when there was a failed attempt made, and the person put in charge of reorganization then was John Cowell, Dr. John Cowell, who Danielle Smith appointed in 2023 to oversee the reorganization of AHS now. So you take a person who failed to reorganize AHS back in 2013 to do another failed, basically a theater performance for Albertans to pretend that something was being done when nothing was being done. Now, moving on to accountability during the COVID-19 pandemic. AHS committed many crimes during the COVID-19 pandemic. I mean, I was trying to find a way to fit them all on one slide. There's just too many, so I will highlight only a few. Of course, it wasn't the only institution to commit crimes during the pandemic, but it was certainly a major one. AHS blocked all early treatments, vilified vitamin D, vilified ivermectin, vilified hydroxychloroquine, and that resulted in 5,800 deaths of Albertans from COVID-19. These were unnecessary deaths. These were preventable deaths. No one was held responsible. In fact, the AHS COVID-19 Scientific Advisory Group, ran by NDP activists like Lenora Saxinger and Braden Mans, were never held responsible for blocking early treatments and forcing Albertans onto ventilators and remdesivir, something that AHS continues to do to this day. AHS legally terrorized Alberta citizens and small businesses during the pandemic and continues to do so to this day with complete impunity. We don't hear about it. AHS implemented an illegal vaccine mandate on its 105,000 healthcare workers, pushed thousands of our top doctors, nurses, and healthcare staff into an early retirement, or pushed them out of medicine altogether. They have never brought those staff back. A few of them, willingly went back when those mandates were rescinded, but they never compensated, never brought them back. In fact, when they were imposing the illegal vaccine mandate, they were going into people's personal medical files to make sure whether you actually were vaccinated or not, all of that illegal. This was under Verna Yu, another NDP plant that was there throughout the pandemic until she got kicked out, and then she landed softly as the vice president of the University of Alberta. AHS lied about the safety of the COVID-19 vaccines in pregnant women and children. In fact, there are now documents obtained by Freedom of Information from Health Canada that prove that Health Canada never approved COVID vaccines in pregnancy in Canada. All the other health officials provincially across Canada ran with it, recommended the vaccines to pregnant women. Health Canada's got their hands clean because they have documents showing they never approved it for lack of safety studies. AHS buried hundreds of vaccine injury reports that were submitted by doctors to AHS, and then those doctors were persecuted for doing so. AHS fired thousands of top doctors, nurses, and health staff during a pandemic. No one was ever held responsible. We never had accountability at AHS. That's why AHS still does whatever the hell they want. That's why AHS still demands that new healthcare staff who are hired must have COVID-19 vaccines, believe it or not. Now, I can't just put it all on AHS. We've got the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Alberta. The college threatened doctors to not provide informed consent to their patients when it came to the COVID-19 vaccines. This is the first time in history this has happened in Alberta, where informed consent was eliminated by the College of Physicians and Surgeons. You have a product that was experimental, and there was a memo that went out early on, the rollout of the COVID-19 vaccines, that told doctors, if you tell your patients about the risks of the vaccines, you are causing vaccine hesitancy, we will come after your medical license. So we've lost informed consent. Doctors were not allowed to tell parents that the vaccines that they were giving their kids would cause myocarditis, would cause autoimmune issues, would cause neurological problems, would cause cancer, and an increased lifetime risk of cancer in those vaccinated children, and could cause sudden death. That is absolutely unacceptable. The colleges then sabotaged the medical careers and medical licenses of doctors who stood up for their patients and supported the Hippocratic Oath, nurses. All the colleges did this. It wasn't just the College of Physicians. All the colleges persecuted and continue to persecute healthcare workers to this day. They do so with impunity because the politicians don't have the guts to stand up to the colleges and say, no more, you will not persecute the best healthcare workers that we have who got it right from the beginning. So we've got something called the Manning Report. Commissioned in early 2023 by Premier Smith, the Manning Report was to review government overreach during the pandemic. There was a report that was released in November of 2023, which gave extensive recommendations for a complete overhaul of the Health Professions Act, given the abuses that the colleges engaged in during the pandemic, as I mentioned earlier, persecuting nurses, persecuting doctors, persecuting pharmacists, persecuting healthcare staff just for doing the right thing and being ethical. There were, I think, at least 7 recommendations. And the Manning Report was never heard from again. None of those recommendations were implemented. And this is 2023. We're already at the end of 2024. And now we hear from Premier Smith and MLA Amory that they're going to look into the colleges. They're going to have discussions with stakeholders, and maybe something will come out of it in legislation in the spring of 2025 or the fall of 2025. We're already years behind. This action should have been taken years ago. The colleges should have been reined in years ago. We have the reports. They can lean on the Manning Report, but all we get is kicking the can down the road because there's no accountability. No one wants accountability on the table. No one's being held accountable. Not at AHS, not at the college, not at the Alberta Medical Association, not at the Public Health Chief Office, like Dina Hinshaw, when she tampered with government data and she deleted all the evidence from the government website that showed injuries to the double vaccinated, that their immune systems were being destroyed. She deleted all that data and said, go get your booster shot. She was never held accountable. In fact, she had the good sense to run away to BC, where the MVP is going to protect her. But first she collected a bonus for basically throwing Albertans under the bus and making sure that Albertans didn't have the data that they needed to make an informed decision. So we've got the Manning Report, nothing's being done with it. Then we have the Gary Davidson Report. Gary Davidson was the chief of emergency medicine here in Red Deer, and he was one of the honest doctors who came out and said back in 2021, hey, listen, AHS is lying to Albertans. The emergency rooms are empty. And AHS is telling us that the emergency rooms are overflowing with COVID patients, and they were lying, the emergency rooms were empty. When he came out and said this, he was targeted by AHS, he was targeted by the college came after his medical license, and so Premier Smith appointed him to assemble a task force to review the data that AHS relied upon during the pandemic, when it came to the lockdowns, when it came to vaccine mandates, when it came to pushing, vaccines on their health staff, and so on. and of course pushing vaccines on children, teenagers, pregnant women, and so on. And so he put together this task force, and he's been trying to get data from AHS, and I've been informed privately that AHS lawyers have flat out refused to give this task force any data that might incriminate AHS in wrongdoing. And so we have another task force that has no teeth. And the Davidson report was supposed to come out back in May. It's being postponed. A number of doctors have quit the task force because nothing's happening, and AHS is able to put up roadblocks and simply refuse to give the data that AHS relied upon for its decision making. So we have absolutely no transparency when it comes to AHS. So what are we doing? I mean, what are we doing in this province? We've got this $26 billion entity run by far left woke activists. I mean, they love using their pronouns. Like Verna Yu always presents herself as she and her. These are far left woke activists that have run our healthcare system, and they are in every single top position in healthcare in this province. You know, I did at the Injection of Truth 1, I presented and showed the organizational structure of AHS as it looks today. Something like 12 of the 13 executive positions are held by NDP millionaires who were installed at AHS by Rachel Notley back in 2015 or 2017. It's a leftist mafia. Same thing at the college. The college is run by Michael Cafaro, installed in 2015, and Scott McLeod, installed in 2017, both of them far left activists who control the licenses of 11,000 doctors. Same thing at the Alberta Medical Association. That's why you will see the Alberta Medical Association presidents constantly attacking Danielle Smith. It's a leftist mafia. And same with the public health chief, Dr. Mark Jaffe. Dr. Mark Jaffe got his start as AHS vice president on the back of my lawsuit against AHS in 2017 by Rachel Notley. That is our public health chief, and the court has determined that the moment another lockdown is declared in Alberta, he will have full control of this province to mandate vaccines and so on. Wow. So we're going to rely on the Alberta Bill of Rights that, pardon my French, but that the courts and AHS are going to wipe their behinds with. Because none of them follow these rules, and they will certainly not follow the Alberta Bill of Rights. And if you're going to support the Alberta Bill of Rights, you better make sure that that thing has some kind of teeth. Because as far as I can see, that thing is going to be completely toothless. And we are going to be at the mercy of far leftist activists who now occupy every single healthcare position in this province. Why is that? Can conservatives not find any conservative people to come in and take over those positions? People who haven't been lifetime deep swamp creatures of the NDP or the Liberal mafia. And I've been at this for 9 years. And for 9 years, I keep seeing the same people being cycled into the same top positions at AHS over and over and over again. I'm sorry, I completely digressed from my slide. So I'll try to just kind of come back to the slide and kind of wrap things up a bit. So we've got the Ernst & Young report that says fire 2,000 AHS managers, and you probably won't even notice. I'll tell you a quick story. I was at the Cross, and I was doing my work. And here's the thing you have to know about AHS managers, because you would think that the whole system's going to fall apart, and they'll try to implode it if there's an attempted cleanup of AHS. There will be managers who will try to actually implode the healthcare system. But basically, I was happiest and most productive when my AHS managers were nowhere to be found. When they were out golfing, when they were out basically not in my department. Because when they were in my department, I was tripping over them. They were giving me more work that I didn't need. I was most productive without the 5 AHS managers that were managing me and my cancer program. Yeah, I had 5 managers for me. Okay? So trust me, we can get rid of 2/3 of them and no one will even notice. And that's what we need to do. We need to purge this bureaucratic bloat at AHS. Enough is enough. And I know Albertans have had enough. I know I'm preaching to the choir. We need some courage in the political class to do this. We have the Ernst & Young performance review, which UCP can lean on to clean up AHS. We've got the Manning report, which can be used to clean up the colleges. We've got the Gary Davidson report, and I'm really curious to see what Dr. Gary Davidson has discovered in his investigation of AHS shenanigans during the pandemic. What we need is accountability. We need to hold these unelected bureaucrats accountable. We cannot move on. We cannot sweep this under the rug. Too many people have been harmed. Too many lives have been ruined. I can tell you, 6,000 dead from COVID-19, probably at least 20,000 dead from the vaccines. And I can tell you every year there are somewhere between 4,000 and 6,000 deaths of unknown cause here in Alberta, the vast majority of them due to the vaccines. AHS has buried all the vaccine injury reports. We need transparency with all the vaccine injury reports. We just need transparency at AHS. Send a team of forensic specialists into AHS and find out where every single dollar has gone. We need accountability, and we need it now. Thank you very much.